Chapters 6 to 10, Book 18, Volume 2 of Morte. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Nathan at antipodeanwriter.wordpress.com. Morte d'Arthur, Volume 2, by Sir Thomas Malory. Chapter 6. How at the day Sir Bors made him ready for to fight for the Queen, and when he would fight, how another discharged him. The day came on fast until the even that the battle should be. Then the Queen sent for Sir Bors and asked him how he was disposed. Truly, madam, said he, I am disposed in likewise as I promised you, that is for to say, I shall not fail you, unless by adventure there come a better knight than I am to do battle for you, then, madam, am I discharged of my promise. Will ye, said the Queen, that I tell my Lord Arthur this? Do as it shall please you, madam. Then the Queen went unto the king, and told him the answer of Sir Bors. Have ye no doubt, said the king, of Sir Bors, for I call him now one of the best knights of the world, and the most profitablest man. And thus it passed on until the morn, and the king and the queen, and all manner of knights that were there at that time, drew them unto the meadow beside Westminster, where the battle should be. And so, when the king was come with the queen, and many knights of the Round Table, then the queen was put there in the constable's ward, and a great fire made about an iron stake, that an Sir Mador de la Porte had the better, she should be burnt. Such custom was used in those days, that neither for favour, neither for love nor affinity, there should be none other but righteous judgment, as well upon a king as upon a knight, and as well upon a queen as upon another poor lady. So in this meanwhile came in Sir Mador de la Porte, and took his oath afore the king that the queen did this treason until his cousin Sir Patrice, and unto his oath he would prove it with his body, hand for hand, who that would say the contrary. Right so came in Sir Bors de Ganis, and said, that as for Queen Guenever she is in the right, and that will I make good with my hands that she is not culpable of this treason that is put upon her. Then make ye ready, said Sir Mador, and we shall prove whether thou be in the right or I. Sir Mador, said Sir Bors, wit thou well I know you for a good knight. Not for then I shall not fear you so greatly, but I trust to God I shall be able to withstand your malice. But this much have I promised my Lord Arthur and my lady the Queen, that I shall do battle for her in this case to the uttermost, unless that there come a better knight than I am and discharge me. Is that all? Said Sir Mador. Either come thou off and do battle with me, or else say nay. Take your horse, said Sir Bors, and, as I suppose, ye shall not tarry long, but ye shall be answered. Then either departed to their tents, and made them ready to horseback as they thought best, and anon Sir Mador came into the field with his shield on his shoulder and his spear in his hand, and so rode about the place, crying unto Arthur, Bid your champion come forth an he dare. Then was Sir Bors ashamed, and took his horse, and came to the lists' end. And then was he where came from a wood there fast by a knight all armed, upon a white horse, with a strange shield of strange arms. And he came riding all that he might run. And so he came to Sir Bors, and said thus, Fair knight, I pray you be not displeased, for here must a better knight than ye are have this battle. Therefore I pray you withdraw you. For wit ye well I have had this day a right great journey, and this battle ought to be mine, and so I promised you when I spake with you last, and with all my heart I thank you of your good will. Then Sir Bors rode unto King Arthur, and told him how there was a knight come that would have the battle for to fight for the Queen. What knight is he? Said the king. I wot not, said Sir Bors, but such covenant he made with me to be here this day. Now my lord, said Sir Bors, here am I discharged. Chapter 7. How Sir Launcelot fought against Sir Mador for the Queen, and how he overcame Sir Mador, and discharged the Queen. Then the king called to that knight, and asked him if he would fight for the queen. Then he answered to the king, Therefore came I hither, and therefore, Sir King, he said, tarry me no longer, for I may not tarry. For anon, as I have finished this battle, I must depart hence, for I have ado many matters elsewhere. For wit you well, said that knight, this is dishonour to you all knights of the Round Table, to see and know so noble a lady and so courteous a queen as Queen Guenever is, thus to be rebuked and shamed amongst you. Then they all marvelled what knight that might be that so took the battle upon him, for there was not one that knew him, but if it were Sir Bors. Then said Sir Mador de la Porte unto the king, Now let me wit with whom I shall have ado withal. And then they rode to the lists' end, and there they couched their spears, and ran together with all their might, and Sir Mador's spear brake all to pieces, but the other's spear held, and bare Sir Mador's horse and all backward to the earth a great fall. But mightily and suddenly he avoided his horse, and put his shield afore him, and then drew his sword, and bade the other knight alight and do battle with him on foot. Then that knight descended from his horse lightly, like a valiant man, and put his shield afore him, and drew his sword, and so they came eagerly unto battle, and either gave other many great strokes, tracing and traversing, racing and foining, and hurtling together with their swords as it were wild boars. Thus were they fighting nigh an hour, for this Sir Mador was a strong knight, and mightily proved in many strong battles. But at the last this knight smote Sir Mador grovelling upon the earth, and the knight stepped near him to have pulled Sir Mador flatling upon the ground, and therewith suddenly Sir Mador arose, and in his rising he smote that knight through the thick of the thighs that the blood ran out fiercely. And when he felt himself so wounded, and saw his blood, he let him arise upon his feet, and then he gave him such a buffet upon the helm that he fell to the earth flatling, and therewith he strode to him to have pulled off his helm off his head. And then Sir Mador prayed that knight to save his life, and so he yielded him as overcome, and released the queen of his quarrel. I will not grant thee thy life, said that knight, only that thou freely release the queen for ever, and that no mention be made upon Sir Patrice's tomb that ever Queen Guenever consented to that treason. All this shall be done, said Sir Mador. I clearly discharge my quarrel for ever. Then the knights, partners of the lists, took up Sir Mador, and led him to his tent, and the other knight went straight to the stair-foot where sat King Arthur, and by that time was the queen come to the king, and either kissed other heartily. And when the king saw that knight he stooped down to him and thanked him, and in likewise did the queen, and the king prayed him to put off his helmet, and to repose him, and to take a sop of wine. But then he put off his helm to drink, and then every knight knew him that it was Sir Launcelot de Lake. Anon, as the king wist that, he took the queen in his hand, and yode unto Sir Launcelot, and said, Sir, grant mercy of your great travail that ye have had this day for me and for my queen. My lord, said Sir Launcelot, wit ye well I ought of right ever to be in your quarrel, and in my lady the queen's quarrel, to do battle. For ye are the man that gave me the high order of knighthood, and that day my lady, your queen, did me great worship, and else I had been shamed. For that same day ye made me knight. Through my hastiness I lost my sword, and my lady, your queen, found it, and lapped it in her train, and gave me my sword when I had need thereto. And else had I been shamed among all knights, and therefore, my lord Arthur, I promised her at that day ever to be her knight in right other in wrong. Grant mercy, said the king, for this journey, and wit ye well, said the king, I shall acquit your goodness. And ever the queen beheld Sir Launcelot, and wept so tenderly that she sank almost to the ground for sorrow that he had done to her so great goodness, where she shewed him great unkindness. Then the knights of his blood drew unto him, and there either of them made great joy of other, and so came all the knights of the Table Round that were there at that time, and welcomed him. And then Sir Mador was had to leechcraft, and Sir Launcelot was healed of his wound, and then there was made great joy and mirths in that court. Chapter 8. How the truth was known by the Maiden of the Lake, and of divers other matters. And so it befell that the damsel of the lake, her name was Nimue, the which wedded the good knight Sir Pelleas, and so she came to the court, for ever she did great goodness unto King Arthur and to all his knights through her sorcery and enchantments. And so when she heard how the queen was anangered for the death of Sir Patrice, then she told it openly that she was never guilty, and there she disclosed by whom it was done, and named him Sir Pinel, and for what cause he did it. There it was openly disclosed, and so the queen was excused, and the knight Pinel fled into his country. Then was it openly known that Sir Pinel empoisoned the apples at the feast to that intent to have destroyed Sir Gawaine, because Sir Gawaine and his brethren destroyed Sir Lamorak de Galis, to the which Sir Pinel was cousin unto. Then was Sir Patrice buried in the church of Westminster in a tomb, and thereupon was written, Here lieth Sir Patrice of Ireland, slain by Sir Pinel le Savage, that empoisoned apples to have slain Sir Gawaine, and by misfortune Sir Patrice ate one of those apples, and then suddenly he brast. Also there was written upon the tomb that Queen Guenever was appealed of treason of the death of Sir Patrice by Sir Mador de la Porte, and there was made mention how Sir Launcelot fought with him for Queen Guenever, and overcame him in plain battle. All this was written upon the tomb of Sir Patrice in excusing of the queen. And then Sir Mador sued daily and long to have the queen's good grace, and so by the means of Sir Launcelot he caused him to stand in the queen's good grace, and all was forgiven. Thus it passed on till our Lady Day Assumption. Within a 15 days of that feast the king let cry a great jousts and a tournament that should be at that day at Camelot, that is Winchester, and the king let cry that he and the King of Scots would joust against all that would come against them. And when this cry was made, thither came many knights. So there came thither the King of Northgalis, and King Anguish of Ireland, and the king with the 100 knights, and Galahad the haut prince, and the King of Northumberland, and many other noble dukes and earls of divers countries. So King Arthur made him ready to depart to these jousts, and would have had the queen with him, but at that time she would not, she said, for she was sick, and might not ride at that time. That me repenteth, said the king, for this 7 year ye saw not such a noble fellowship together except at Whitsuntide, when Galahad departed from the court. Truly, said the queen to the king, ye must hold me excused. I may not be there, and that me repenteth. And many deemed the queen would not be there because of Sir Launcelot de Lake, for Sir Launcelot would not ride with the king, for he said that he was not whole of the wound the which Sir Mador had given him, wherefore the king was heavy and passing wroth. And so he departed toward Winchester with his fellowship, and so by the way the king lodged in a town called Astolat, that is now in English called Guildford, and there the king lay in the castle. So when the king was departed, the queen called Sir Launcelot to her, and said thus, Sir Launcelot, ye are greatly to blame thus to hold you behind my lord. What trow ye? What will your enemies and mine say, and deem? Nought else but. See how Sir Launcelot holdeth him ever behind the king, and so doth the queen, for that they would have their pleasure together. And thus will they say, said the queen to Sir Launcelot, have ye no doubt thereof. Chapter 9. How Sir Launcelot rode to Astolat, and received a sleeve to wear upon his helm at the request of a maid. Madam, said Sir Launcelot, I allow your wit, it is of late come since ye were wise, and therefore, madam, at this time I will be ruled by your counsel, and this night I will take my rest, and tomorrow by time I will take my way toward Winchester. But wit you well, said Sir Launcelot to the queen, that at that jousts I will be against the king and against all his fellowship. Ye may there do as ye list, said the queen, but by my counsel ye shall not be against your king and your fellowship, for therein be full many hard knights of your blood, as ye wot well enough, it needeth not to rehearse them. Madam, said Sir Launcelot, I pray you that ye be not displeased with me, for I will take the adventure that God will send me. So upon the morn early Sir Launcelot heard mass and brake his fast, and so took his leave of the queen and departed. And then he rode so much until he came to Astolat, that is Guildford. And there it happed him in the eventide he came to an old baron's place that hight Sir Bernard of Astolat. And as Sir Launcelot entered into his lodging, King Arthur espied him as he did walk in a garden beside the castle, how he took his lodging, and knew him full well. It is well, said King Arthur unto the knights that were with him in that garden beside the castle, I have now espied one knight that will play his play at the jousts to the which we will be gone toward. I undertake he will do marvels. Who is that, we pray you tell us, said many knights that were there at that time. Ye shall not wit for me, said the king, as at this time. And so the king smiled, and went to his lodging. So when Sir Launcelot was in his lodging, and unarmed him in his chamber, the old baron and hermit came to him making his reverence, and welcomed him in the best manner. But the old knight knew not Sir Launcelot. Fair sir, said Sir Launcelot to his host, I would pray you to lend me a shield that were not openly known, for mine is well known. Sir, said his host, ye shall have your desire, for meseemeth ye be one of the likeliest knights of the world, and therefore I shall shew you friendship. Sir, wit you well I have two sons that were but late made knights, and the eldest hight Sir Tirre, and he was hurt that same day he was made knight, that he may not ride, and his shield ye shall have, for that is not known I dare say but here, and in no place else. And my youngest son hight Levine, and if it please you, he shall ride with you unto that jousts, and he is of his age strong and white. For much my heart giveth unto you that ye should be a noble knight. Therefore I pray you, tell me your name, said Sir Bernard. As for that, said Sir Launcelot, ye must hold me excused as at this time, and if God give me grace to speed well at the jousts, I shall come again and tell you. But I pray you, said Sir Launcelot, in any wise let me have your son, Sir Lavaine, with me, and that I may have his brother's shield. All this shall be done, said Sir Bernard. This old baron had a daughter that was called that time the Fair Maiden of Astolat, and ever she beheld Sir Launcelot wonderfully, and as the book saith, she cast such a love unto Sir Launcelot that she could never withdraw her love, wherefore she died, and her name was Elaine le Blanc. So thus as she came to and fro, she was so hot in her love that she besought Sir Launcelot to wear upon him at the jousts a token of hers. Fair damosel, said Sir Launcelot, and if I grant you that, ye may say I do more for your love than ever I did for lady or damosel. Then he remembered him he would go to the jousts disguised, and because he had never for that time borne no manner of token of no damosel, then he bethought him that he would bear one of her, that none of his blood thereby might know him, and then he said, Fair maiden, I will grant you to wear a token of yours upon mine helmet, and therefore what it is, show it me. Sir, she said, it is a red sleeve of mine of scarlet, well embroidered with great pearls. And so she brought it him. So Sir Launcelot received it, and said, Never did I erst so much for no damsel. And then Sir Launcelot betook the fair maiden his shield in keeping, and prayed her to keep that until that he came again. And so that night he had merry rest and great cheer, for ever the damsel Elaine was about Sir Launcelot all the while she might be suffered. Chapter 10. How the tourney began at Winchester, and what knights were at the jousts, and other things. So upon a day, on the morn, King Arthur and all his knights departed, for their king had tarried 3 days to abide his noble knights. And so when the king was ridden, Sir Launcelot and Sir Lavaine made them ready to ride, and either of them had white shields, and the red sleeve Sir Launcelot let carry with him. And so they took their leave at St Bernard, the old baron, and at his daughter, the Fair Maiden of Astolat, and then they rode so long till that they came to Camelot, that time called Winchester, and there was great press of kings, dukes, earls, and barons, and many noble knights. But there Sir Launcelot was lodged privily by the means of Sir Lavaine, with a rich burgess, that no man in that town was ware what they were. And so they reposed them there till Our Lady Day, Assumption, as the great feast should be. So then trumpets blew unto the field, and King Arthur was set on high upon a scaffold to behold who did best. But as the French book saith, the king would not suffer Sir Gawaine to go from him, for never had Sir Gawaine the better and Sir Launcelot were in the field, and many times was Sir Gawaine rebuked when Launcelot came into any jousts disguised. Then some of the kings, as King Anguish of Ireland and the King of Scots, were that time turned upon the side of King Arthur. And then on the other party was the King of Northgalis, and the King with the 100 Knights, and the King of Northumberland, and Sir Galahad the Haut Prince. But these three kings and this duke were passing weak to hold against King Arthur's party, for with him were the noblest knights of the world. So then they withdrew them either party from other, and every man made him ready in his best manner to do what he might. Then Sir Launcelot made him ready, and put the red sleeve upon his head, and fastened it fast. And so Sir Launcelot and Sir Lavaine departed out of Winchester privily, and rode until a little leaved wood behind the party that held against King Arthur's party, and there they held them still till the parties smote together. And then came in the King of Scots and the King of Ireland on Arthur's party, and against them came the King of Northumberland, and the King with the 100 Knights smote down the King of Northumberland, and the King with the 100 Knights smote down King Anguish of Ireland. Then Sir Palomides, that was on Arthur's party, encountered with Sir Galahad, and either of them smote down other, and either party helped their lords on horseback again. And so there began a strong assail upon both parties. And then came in Sir Brandiles, Sir Sagramore le Desirous, Sir Dodinas le Sauvage, Sir Kay le Seneschal, Sir Griflet le Fils de Dieu, Sir Modred, Sir Meliot de Logris, Sir Ozana le Cure Hardy, Sir Safria, Sir Epinogris, Sir Galeron of Galloway. All these 15 knights were knights of the Round Table. So these with more other came in together, and beat aback the King of Northumberland and the King of Northgalis. When Sir Launcelot saw this, as he hoved in a little leaved wood, then he said unto Sir Lavaine, See, yonder is a company of good knights, and they hold them together as boars that were chafed with dogs. That is truth, said Sir Lavaine. End of Book 18, chapters 6 to 10. Read by Nathan at antipodeanwriter.wordpress.com